distinguishing the difference between being triggered by something and then somebody mistreating you. Like, in a confrontation with somebody, is the dynamic unraveling in a way that's rooted in a trigger, or due to somebody mistreating you or you mistreating somebody? Now, when we are triggered by something, we can then move forward in ways that are mistreating of the other person because we feel triggered and we feel we need to defend ourselves. But I'm talking about the specific point at which we're communicating with somebody where something has occurred. And if we're talking from the me vantage point, something occurs and then we bring it up like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what is this about? I'm sensing X, Y, and Z. Highlight that being the attempt to communicate and address what we're picking up on for clarity's sake. When they respond in a way that then is followed up by us feeling offended, thrown off, confused, hurt, is that emotion coming from a trigger in how they responded to our initial inquiry? Or are those feelings coming across validly from them mistreating us in how they responded to our initial inquiry? There are a lot of buzzwords. I roll my eyes at them because there are a lot of buzzwords that are valid words, valid behaviors, conditions that are being overused and in turn being washed out, which is very unfortunate. I would like to say everybody is capable of narcissistic behavior. I think it is much more of a rare occurrence for somebody to be narcissistic, although far common for many people to behave narcissistically at times. I also think it is very, very common for people to behave in ways of mistreatment that other people will label as narcissistic behavior. They are very different. So for sake of bringing some clarity to all of that, I've been looking at the domino effect, the chain reaction that occurs when a vibe is picked up on and we bring it up like, hey, what's going on here? And then the person deflects, defends, reacts to that in a way that is mistreating to us, which then brings up emotion of like, hey, I'm here just trying to communicate because I don't know why this is going on. And then that causes a chain reaction of which then at the time, the person who may be deflecting or shutting out the person attempting to communicate and bring clarity or request some accountability to what's being experienced between the two, to deem the other person as emotional, as reactive, as being triggered or traumatized, or, you know, any of the emotional vocabulary that can come up in terms of arguments, disagreements between people. The behavior of gaslighting somebody can be conscious, although often it is a subconscious behavior learned through growing up with parents who speak and act with their partner in poor, mistreating behavior. So the individual grows up thinking that that's normal, gets it from watching low quality society behaviors, ghetto behaviors, living in a reactive state. And it's important to learn the difference in whether somebody is doing it consciously or if somebody is doing it subconsciously and can in turn learn from it being brought to light. One of the key reasons to learn emotional regulation, breath work, is so that when we feel an emotion rise up in us candidly in a moment in trying to communicate with somebody and we are shut down, we are reacted to, we are shamed, we are mistreated, is we can feel that heat flare up under our skin and our heart race and our pupils dilate, our nervous system just like, this doesn't feel good. And take a breath and breathe so we can regulate the emotional chemistry going on inside us so we can keep our minds clear and respond clearly going forward, navigating around any reactivity that would just throw logs of wood on the fire. When we are doing so with somebody, navigating conflict, and we are using words, we are breathing, we are regulating, and we are navigating in a way to bring clarity, to navigate around the reactivity, and we are only receiving more reactivity, and then you feel the script flip on you, and now suddenly you're the one that said the thing, or you're the one that did the thing, or you're the problem. It's like, that is a moment many of us have been in, and you can cast a net around it and encapsulate it and push it over there because it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a fucking minute. There is no way I am engaging in that dynamic. The moment you can feel your chemistry sense from what your mind recognizes as somebody flips that script on you and you're like, this is madness. I just said that. I said this to you and now you're flipping it. It's like you feel a moment of insanity. Like, wait a fucking minute. That's not what you just said. Or that's what I said you were saying. And now you're saying I'm saying it. Like, and it's that moment you want to react in defense of yourself because it's so preposterous in your mind that you want to scream like, wait a fucking minute. How are you saying that? That is a highlight circle underline key point of the sensations and the psychological awareness that you are being gaslit. Now, gaslit is a whole term and requires specificity of many categories all in itself. For simple terms today, we're going to speak on it lightly by saying that is a key moment to know you are being gaslit, which, dissected farther, is a moment to realize that person is feeling out of control somehow, is feeling, and this is all subconscious, incapable of taking any accountability that you're requesting or pointing out or communication you're trying to solve. They're looking to make distance between you and them. They're looking to shut you down and push you away, make it wrong, so that hopefully you be quiet and stop attempting to communicate. Because communication takes accountability on both sides. And if they are not in a position to take accountability, even if you are, and you're like, hey, you know, X, Y, and Z happened, I apologize for this miscommunication. I'm just not understanding what's going on here. Can you help me? And if they're like, well, you're the fucking problem. It's like, dodge that, step to the side, neutralize it, and choose to not participate. Because the person is now bringing out weapons to bring distance, shut you down, stop it, make it your problem, shame you into being quiet so that they can feel not in the wrong. They can feel higher up. They can feel better about themselves, because to take accountability is humbling. To take accountability admits that we have done something to hurt somebody, whether we like them or not. So when we are navigating conversations with people and we end up reflecting on that argument, disagreement, miscommunication, like self-reflecting, like, how did any of that happen? Where could I take accountability for even if someone's throwing potatoes at me? How did that conspire? How did that unfold? Was I triggered? Did I miss something? Did I say something at some point that I missed? We can overthink on that category. At the same time, still do the inventory, consider what happened, reflect on it. In this dissection, I came across the internal question on how do we know if indeed we feel triggered by something that contributed to the unfolding of a negative, messy, misunderstanding, miscommunication, bad scenario? And when are we mistreated? That leads to the unfolding of miscommunication. A trigger is an example of if somebody says something, like maybe one of your parents said, you know, if they say, oh, well, you're always a goose. Here you are acting like a goose again. And you're like, this is deep subconscious. You're like, I'm not a fucking goose. What are you talking about? I hate that. I always grew up hearing my parents call me a fucking goose. And when you say it, I'm just livid. When that's the energy we're coming from, somewhere deep inside here, that's a trigger. If somebody beat us up once in life and we're having a disagreement and somebody like goes like this, we can feel triggered because of the past experience. And sometimes our tone and inflection can come out in a reactive, like, way because we're feeling triggered by the body language that the person instilled when they were frustrated. That's a trigger. Now, being mistreated is when you're like, hey, I want to talk about this. What, like, help me understand. And they say, well, you're just stupid and get out of my face. You're being an idiot. It's like, I'm not an idiot. Why would you say that to me? You're being a goose. You're just a silly goose. Like, why are you making a judgment? Like, I'm trying to communicate. I'm being sincere. I'm being neutral. My emotions are regulated. My heart rate is calm. I'm picking up on something from you and I'm unsure about it. And I'm using words to explain calmly, casually, hey, what's going on? And they're like, you're a goose and you're a zebra and you're all these things and you're the problem and you're making it up and it's all you. And then you're like, this is silly. What? I don't even understand. What the fuck is going on here? Yeah, well, I said, you know, I said you were going to turn into a goose and now you're calling me a goose. And I don't know why you started this. And that is the moment where you're like, wait a minute. I never called you a goose. They're like, yeah, you did. And that is a control behavior, conscious or not, to where now you're going to react in defense of yourself because you're like, I never fucking called you a goose. And they're like, well, now look who's mad. Now look who's the problem. And then they can often get calm and be like, you know, we would have been having a great time if you didn't all of a sudden call me a goose and now you're reacting over nothing and I never had a problem to begin with. And it's like, what the fuck? Ooh! That is mistreatment. That is mistreatment. And yes, mistreatment ties into triggers. It's a delicate web of connection, very close and also very different from each other. We must learn the difference in where our triggers come from, how to recognize them when they come up, what mistreatment is, and how our triggers come up in being mistreated. All of which can be bypassed, navigated around when we remain emotionally regulated, when we uphold boundaries, when we use clear communication. And no matter how clear our communication can be, and eloquently said and timed and delivered and compassion given and remain neutral, if the person we're attempting to communicate with is not going to participate in that communication, there is a point we must stop. We must put down the words of communication and step off the stage, step away from the situation, disengage, and move on somewhere else in life. Communication requires two people. If one person is not looking to participate and resolve conflict with you, participate in conflict resolution, terminate the communication, uphold your boundaries for regard, do not participate in mistreatment, in receiving or giving, and move on. If the person clears their mind and reflects on themselves and wants to clear the air at a later time and communicate again, they're welcome to approach you and say, hey, I want to talk about things. I thought about X, Y, and Z, and I want to apologize. I want to clear it up. Great. We're not going to get anywhere when somebody is actively reactive, defensive, subconscious or conscious, valid or not, because of the chemistry that's going on in their brain. They're going to mishear you. They're going to defend themselves. They're going to react. They're going to withdraw. They're going to do all these things where they're not even hearing you, no matter how you're saying it and how you're showing up to resolve the conflict. Conflict resolution is a muscle skill in terms of psychology and communication. Emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, communication, emotional regulation are all very important things all of us should know about at minimum. And then practice them every single day. There's sometimes we can find ourselves in an occurrence with somebody of like, why the fuck was I given that experience? And if nothing else, it was a blade honing situation. Honing the blade, sharpening your tools, working your muscles out of the gym for these skills of communication. They also are imperative for your own self-discovery. If you're not able to emotionally regulate, engage in conflict resolution with yourself, how are you going to understand yourself and learn about yourself? Also learning the ability to table something, to compartmentalize, and not disassociate, because disassociate is to fully disengage as though it's not even happening, but compartmentalize. Be like, I'm going to put that over here, and I'm going to continue on with my day, and then I'm going to circle back to that when I'm at a place where I can appropriately address it. That is a profound skill in ourselves, because some days we can get wrapped up in events that happen and just want to circle and circle and circle and circle, and we're draining our adrenal system, we're exhausting our battery supply emotionally by just reeling in these thoughts and jacking our chemistry up all day. So to be able to cast that net, encapsulate it, and be like, I'm putting that there. And focus yourself forward for the day. Ooh, powerhouse. Learn to do that. Everything that happens for us. Good, bad, ugly, beautiful, black, white, gray, blue, pink. Practice your breath. Practice your regulation. Practice calming your brain tissue when you feel like it's about to explode out of your eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. When you feel tension at the back of your neck and your head, breathe and release that tension. Tension at the back of the head and neck is equivalent to jaw clenching. You can sometimes be doing both to cause it. It's also a tension of the neck. Breathe and relax that shit. Being triggered can come from being mistreated. Mistreatment and trigger response are different. If you find yourself in a disagreement, argument, or fight with somebody, consider, were you being mistreated to cause that? Were you mistreating them to cause that? Did something happen that triggered you to either cause you to feel mistreated? Were they actually mistreating you? Did you feel triggered and in turn mistreat them? These are all excellent and imperative things to consider.